Welcome everyone to a Superman's Cleveland Lineage and Legacy event. I want to thank you all for coming this evening. I am Don Boozer, the coordinator of the Ohio Center for the Book and the manager of the Literature Department. And for those of you who got to see our exhibit over in the Literature Department, also the person who helps to do the curation of the Superman exhibit as well. I encourage everybody to stop by the second floor of the main library and check out the exhibit that we have over there. We are calling it semi-permanent, so it will be there as long as you want to come back. So I want to also acknowledge Valentino Zullo, who is the Rector Dean. Well deserved, well deserved. So Dr. Zullo, as we like to call him, because it sounds like a comic book villain, was instrumental in putting this together. I want to thank him for bringing it to me to co-host with him. This has been a wonderful experience. We have 2-3 more weeks of events. We encourage you to come to the Cleveland Museum of Art, where we will be welcoming Sina Grace. We'll be there. And we also have a free event at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as well coming up with Siegel Larson, as a matter of fact, and Sarah Kuhn. So we have those coming up as well. So check out supermanscleveland.com for all of the details. And without further ado, I would like to hand the mic over to John Skirdick, who will welcome you to the library.
Hi. Thanks, everybody. We're really excited to be a part of this this great series of Superman events. Those of you who haven't gotten to see our second floor exhibit, we first started our Superman exhibit on the first floor, where we have our wonderful floral exhibit. But before that was our Superman. It just showed something you just said, Mark, the resonance of what it still means to the community of Cleveland and overall. It was so popular, Don and his team put the exhibit back up on the second floor. So just based on, I just wanted to say on behalf of our Board of Trustees, Felton Thomas, our director, thank you so much for being here. I hope that you come back to Cleveland Public Library and see that we're constantly doing wonderful things. And thanks to Mark and Brad for being here. So I hope you have a wonderful time. Jenny?
And hello, the final introduction of the evening, I think. So, hi everyone, I'm Dr. Jennifer Swartz-Levine. I'm the Dean of the School of Arts, Education, Humanities, and Social Sciences, Professor of English, and co-director of the Tower Honors Program at Lake Erie College in Painesville, Ohio. I'm also a member of the Siegel and Shuster Society, and both organizations are proud to be one of the many, many sponsors of this event. And I'd encourage you to check out the long list of sponsors that are listed in your program. I'd also particularly like to thank Dr. Valentino Zullo from Ursuline College and Don Boozer from Ohio Center for the Book and the Cleveland Public Library for spearheading the efforts to celebrate the 85th anniversary of Superman's arrival, both on our planet and on our comic book pages. I'm delighted to introduce you to the two speakers you're going to be hearing from this evening. First, Dr. Brad Ricca, who I have known since grad school, but you all have known him from his many books that celebrate the adventurous spirit and intrepid nature of his subjects. True Raiders, All of the Lionheart, and Mrs. Sherlock Holmes are absolute page-turners, as is the graphic adaptation of Nellie Bly's 10 Days in a Madhouse, for which Brad and his colleague Courtney C. were nominated for an Eisner Award. He also has written the definitive story of Superman's creators, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, in Superboys, which I know that many of you in the room have read and loved. And now, for Mark Waid. There is no way to list all of Mark's work, or we would be here for the next week, but I want to mention some highlights. He made Wally West our Flash. He reintroduced us to Superman and Superman Birthright. He imagines a superhero gone bad and irredeemable, and a supervillain turned good and incorruptible. He maintains his unbeaten streak of winning comics trivia contests single-handedly as he triumphed yet again against two teams and audience questions in the competition last night at Carol and John's comic shop. Yeah. Which, if you were there and heard some of those questions, that was super impressive. So he is currently writing Shazam and has returned to the Superman universe with World's Finest and the Last Days of Lex Luthor. But my favorite book of Mark's is when he envisions what happens when superheroes get old and have tagged out of the superheroing business until they're drawn back in. Kingdom Come. I love that book so much that I have taught it frequently. And that leads to a quick story of how I met Mark when he was signing comics at the Three Rivers Comic Con. My husband was waiting in line with my teaching copy of Kingdom Come, And I wandered away, only to look up and see my very tall husband waving at me to come on back. When I returned, Mark said, "You teach a class on Superman, I'm coming to talk to your students." And he did, and they loved it. And in fact, I still get notes from them about how meaningful that was and how much it meant to them. And I am so happy that thanks to Valentino and Dawn, Mark is back in Cleveland tonight to talk about Superman, Superman's legacy, and why, especially now, Superman matters. Everyone, I give you Mark Waid.
He's unlike a lot of other characters that way. Like, we left Curious George way behind, right? Adults don't walk down the street wearing Berenstain Bears t-shirts or caps. You know, adults don't think about Raggedy Ann, although you will now. Very few characters, very few things we learn about as children that we carry forth into our adulthood and make so much a part of our lives, right? I mean, even your grandmother knows the term Fortress of Solitude by this time. This is how deeply this character's penetrated American pop culture. But why does he stick? I mean, that's what's interesting to me. And he first appeared 80 years ago in Action Comics. I'm going to skip over a lot of the history because for this crowd, you don't need it. But in short, he appears in this comic that no one has any faith that DC Comics is going to do anything. As a matter of fact, the publisher didn't even like the cover. The publisher looked at the cover and said, "This is ridiculous. We need to put more soldiers of fortune and guys with guns on covers." And then the newsstands, the news dealers said, "No, this is the thing that's selling your comic." So, before long, he's got a regular newspaper strip, which brings him into millions and millions of homes. He gets this amazing radio show, which continues to reach out to audiences with children, made for children, but also listened to by adults. Obviously, a marketing bonanza for DC. He became a balloon float in the days when balloon technology was much to be desired. He had a day at the World's Fair made specifically for him in 1940. He surpassed hundreds and hundreds of similar costume superheroes from the 1930s and 1940s, almost none of whom you would know today. He became a cartoon. He became an integral part of early American television. He became another cartoon. He became this guy. He became a television star again with a series of television, a long string of television shows, blockbuster movies. He's been around for this long. That's pretty amazing. So he's got longevity on his side, and that's part of it. I know that some of that is because we love Superman. Some of that cynically is because of branding, because of marketing on DC's part to keep that character alive. But the thing about that is DC loses ownership of that character the moment he enters our imagination. So it's still, if we weren't paying attention, if we weren't invested, he wouldn't still be around. So yes, he can walk through walls, stop runaway trains, he can help kids out of trees, and that's a good thing. I'm not knocking that. I'm not trying to undersell. It's pretty awesome. But I want to dig deeper. Like, he lives in this world full of sunlight and wonder. He rescues people as often as he fights criminals. His stories are not grim, they're not fatalistic, because when they are, they don't work. I'm going to paraphrase something by this film critic I read named Bob Chipman that's about as good a summation of why Superman isn't cynical as I have ever heard. And I quote, "Superman only makes sense from a place of optimism. Superman doesn't create good situations, he protects them and he builds them back up when they fall down. He makes things right. He makes the statement that good is the default setting of the universe, and therefore the job of a demigod who aims to do good is to fix things when they break and thwart evil from spoiling the natural state of goodness, because if the universe is not good at its core, then the moral responsibility of that same well-intentioned being is to assume power absolutely and make the universe good by force. And that is not Superman. That certainly doesn't mean bad things can't happen in his world, obviously. Kal-El from a dying world, marketed to somewhere he'd be safe and welcomed. I'm sure 85 times during this conference we talked about Moses and the parable there, and we all know about this. Did you know that Krypton, actually, the word Krypton actually comes from the Greek word for hidden or secret? That is not a coincidence. Jerry Siegel was pretty well read. Yes, I'm saying yes. Yes. Krypton derived from yes. Okay. That's all right. That's all right. I got you. Thanks. But let's drill down on that secrecy angle, okay? Because the real factor here for the secrecy is Clark Kent. To my mind, even beyond the character's origins, the powers, to me, I would argue that Clark Kent was Siegel and Shuster's most inspired touch to the whole myth. I mean, for starters, it made him unique. Every other costumed adventurer is the real guy with a mask. Captain America disguises himself, Zorro disguises himself, the Lone Ranger disguises a true identity. Superman didn't wear a mask. That's because Superman was the real guy. Clark Kent was the mask. That's Clark's function. Clark is not a commentary on how Superman sees us. Clark is a place where Superman can be ordinary, where he can connect with ordinary people in an ordinary way without them treating him like a god, where he can be a part of society because we all need some human connection. No one wants to go through life alone, and without the Clark disguise, Superman would be incredibly lonely. Remember, this is a guy who lives in a world of cardboard and glass. This is a guy who has a strength to juggle tanks, but he really can't turn it off very easily, and he has to be on guard 24/7 and move very carefully. He can't pick up basketball because when an inverted move, he breaks an arm. And he can't help you move your couch because if he sneezes and loses, that couch is going to end up on Mars. The Clark Kent identity isn't necessary for Superman, so he has a way of walking among us, even if it forces him to keep a huge secret. Again, I don't know that I can overstate what Siegel and Shuster tapped into with that. People complain to me all the time, I don't get Superman, I can't relate to Superman. Great, that's not who you're supposed to relate to. This is the guy you're supposed to relate to. That's why he exists, right? No one expects you to identify with a character who lift a car over his head or punches battleships or can hear a cricket chirp 2 counties over. You understand Clark Kent because everybody knows what it feels like at one time or another, to wish that they, whether it's the cute guy who ignores you because you wear braces, or the boss who thinks you're incompetent, even though you know you're not, or the older brother who keeps calling you kid and doesn't take you seriously. Everybody wishes that they could see you for who you really are. Everybody feels invisible at times. That's Clark. You're never going to be Spider-Man or Wonder Woman, but at some point in your life, maybe more than once, we're all going to be Clark Kent. So let's recap what we have so far. Superman speaks to us because he speaks to hope and light and rescue. He captures our attention because he's an immigrant who fights for noble values. He speaks to us because consciously or subconsciously, we all have some sense of what it's like to be Clark Kent. And there's one last thing that makes Superman magical to us. In my experience, if I ask a random stranger on the street, tell me the first thing you can think about Superman, they all say the same thing. Ask yourself real quick. The first thing you think about, not you. He can fly. That's what people's greatest fantasy is. I mean, we all fantasize about this, about going through the air, arms spread like wings, the wind blowing in our face, unencumbered by responsibility, unencumbered by the force of gravity. That's one of his most identifiable traits. Flying is not the thing that makes us want to read about or watch Superman. That's the thing that makes us want to be Superman. That's what makes him impressive. Also, he knows Batman. So, we're narrowing all this down. All that, in short, goes to the issue of why he's embedded in our culture and why he still is a part of Americana. But it really doesn't explain what he really means to us, the people in this room and beyond. I mean, after all, the things he can do are cool, but he's not cool. Batman is cool and edgy. Spider-Man is cool and funny. Iron Man is cool and rich. But compared to them, the line on Superman, and you hear it, is generally that he's a big blue Boy Scout who's perfect and straight arrow and corny and sort of quaint. He's not a terribly complicated figure, people say. He's not mysterious and dangerous and sexy. Everybody I talk to who's not heavily into Superman thinks he's boring because you can't hurt him, because he's got no flaws, because he's overpowered to the point where he can rot into the sun and be back before lunch. This bugs me, obviously. I disagree, but I will tell you, as a comics writer, the line of writers who want to take a crack at Batman goes around the block, and the line of comics writers who wants to take a crack at Superman is like 3 people. The general take is that he's dull. Now, obviously, I disagree. I think he's cool, but even if I'm wrong, even if he is dull, how can someone so dull matter so much? What makes Superman matter is this, that a godlike hero with unlimited power sets for us, through his adventures and by example, not just noble goals, not just worthy goals or doing good or helping others, but as paradoxical as this may sound when talking about what a god can do, achievable goals. Helping people. Let me explain. This is something we haven't talked about yet. And so imagine how easy your life would be if you were Superman, right? You could glide through the air effortlessly. We talked about that. You would have super strength, and you could wring diamonds out of coal, or you could bat bullets out of the air like they were just flies. You could save people from natural disasters. You could knock down bullies. You could spy on your enemies. You could see and hear all the secrets of your friends and loved ones. You could dominate anyone, seize any throne, rule any nation. You could have anything on Earth, take anything on Earth. You could, with one heat vision stare, obliterate anybody who stood in your way. It would be easy. People abuse power every single day. We see it more and more. Politicians are overstepping, whipping up bigotry and hate, and Wall Street bankers bankrupt innocent people, and authority figures overstep. It's just so easy. So how come the all-powerful Superman doesn't do those kind of things and take the easy route? He could. I mean, no one could stop him. Why isn't he even tempted? Is it because he has an iron will? Is it because of his moral fortitude? No. It's because he exists for the express purpose of telling us something as children that we get to carry with us our whole lives forward. That doing good is its own reward. Beyond that, the way he uses power, he teaches us what I would argue is the most important lesson there is. That true power is kind. It is restrained. It is compassionate. Or to flip that around, kindness is true power. Compassion is true power. Every day we see the benefits of exercising these core values and how they make our lives and the lives of other people around us richer. How they help us connect with one another in a way where hate and callousness just divide us. Those core values are the achievables. They are the values that Superman set forth and imprint upon us as children, the achievable values that empower us. That's why we're subconsciously reminded of them every time that we see that S, whether it's on a t-shirt, or a ball cap, or a movie screen, or wherever. That's what he means to us. He's a constant reminder that empowers us by reminding us how we can be good and kind in the real world, how we can be compassionate in the real world, and how good that feels and how powerful that makes us feel. To be kind and to be compassionate, that's why Superman matters, and that's why he resonates, and that's why he stays. I know I keep talking about Superman like he's a real guy, and clearly he's not. The world's not a comic book. The real world is complex and it's complicated, and the bad guys aren't mad scientists, they're not alien invaders. There's a wonderful naivety and optimism in comics that generally doesn't translate into adult life. But as we move forward, and we all of us, try to make the world a better place however we can, there's no rule that I know of that says who or what we can and can't be inspired by. As long as they matter to you. It can be a family member you respect. It can be a figure from history. It can be a firefighter. It can be a protester. It can be a local council person. It could be him. That's why Superman's here to stay, because he inspires, because he empowers us. That is a hell of a gift from a character of fiction to give us.
I totally agree that the Clark that's it.
Yeah.
That's
That's the X factor. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the genius. I mean, people will go, well, there were other, but we don't have Lamont Cranston-Con, right?
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
But it's because he's a nerd. It's because
Yeah.
what I want to see, and I'm not going to take his place, but Brad Meltzer, who's a big friend of Cleveland, and he helped restore the house, so he's really adamant on kind of the same point, but a little different.
Yeah.
He says, absolutely, the identity is Clark. It's not Superman.
Interesting.
So yeah, and the way he does, I'm not going to speak for him, but it's great.
Yeah.
So I want to see you two on a pay-per-view or something.
I think we're in violent agreement, actually.
I think so.
Because
Yeah.
I think really, Clark, when I talk about Clark being the disguise,
Yeah.
I mean adult Clark was moving around in Metropolis doing stuff.
Okay.
I think really there's
Yes.
three. I think there's three identities.
Yes,
I think
yes.
Brad feels the same way, which is that there's Smallville Clark.
Yes.
And that's as close as you're going to get to the real guy.
Yeah.
Superman, but Superman, to me, Superman is an extension of that.
Okay.
Whereas Clark, the reporter for the Daily Planet, is the disguise.
Yeah.
Because how else do you expect people to even walk up to you and tell you the truth about things, or confide in you anything that you might need to know to help make the world a better place?
Yeah.
No one's going to talk, except for Jimmy Olsen and Batman. No one's going to have a conversation with you that's casual.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're in total agreement.
Violent agreement.
Yeah. Good. No pay-per-view. So nobody started whatevering. Waid said all this stuff. So I have a couple slides.
Please, by all means.
Hey, it's the Prattville Progress. Let's take a look at what's happening, shall we? Well, look at that on the first page, page 1 of the Prattville Progress, junior high honor roll. Hey, that's Mark Waid. So I'm calling this your first appearance.
Okay.
There's all the comics guys. Well, is it his outline? Do we see the costume? But I don't know. But this is what I do.
That's
so
fair.
This is what I tried to find. The junior high honor roll, very nice. First of all, but I wanted to look at some other things going on page 1. This is the Optimist Club of Prattville in Alabama, which you can guess is where Mark's from.
Twice the size of Metropolis.
Twice the size. And they had an Optimist Club with some nice sports coats. They also had the Spinners Club. And yes, that is Spinners Service Chairman Boo Rogers.
No.
Right there.
Okay.
I don't know. They just got this new heart defibrillator, which is pretty awesome. So they should be proud, right? And it also talks about the TVA Roadshow, which came to town and had a display of arrowheads and rebel bugles. A letter from I don't know what to make of this. A letter from a black Union soldier requesting a commission in Tennessee, which is problematic. Letters from writers, canes belonging to both Abraham Lincoln and Jeff Davis, arrowheads, and even a moon rock. So that looks cool. Also, the Church of God was showing a special movie, The Cross and the Switchblade. I don't know if that's on YouTube. It was going to be at the church. I love how they say the author of the original book will appear. His book sold more than 10 million copies, but they don't say who the author is. 10 million copies. That's,
Well,
hats
I
off.
think if you count that being adapted into comic book form, which it
Well-
was, as a freebie giveaway, I think you can probably get to 10 million.
The film chronicled the real-life experiences among drug addicts and gang members in New York City. But it also had on the front page fine arts, Kathy Callis, I hope I'm pronouncing her name, is a concert pianist who will be performing at the First Baptist Church. So why bring this all up? Why kind of blindside Mark with the Prattsville
Great question.
progress? And I'm not going to ask the kind of, I mean, it's kind of a secret origin question.
Yeah.
Not a secret origin, but an origin question. Not like where you fit in all that, but where did comics fit in all that?
They didn't. They simply didn't. By that time, we were already on the march.
Okay.
Turning comics into successfully turning comics from a mass medium into a niche market.
Yeah.
And by that time, you could still go to 7-Eleven and sort of pick them up, but nobody over the age of 12 would be caught dead holding a comic, because especially in the South, that was just shorthand for either you're an idiot, or there's something mentally wrong with you. So that's the kind of habit that you would share with your classmates a little bit. Although again, I didn't really even know anybody in Prattville who was into comics. Mm-hmm. So that was my secret, actually, being a comics fan.
Yeah, I mean, that's my kind of real question is where did comics fit in this world?
In that world.
For you? I mean, what did they do for you in this world?
They were release.
Okay.
They were very much release. I don't want to oversell, over dramatize. I wasn't like beaten as a child, but I did not live a very happy childhood. I was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah,
It
no.
had nothing to do with it. It's okay.
No, but that's
It was
that's
not. I mean,
the
it
work.
had its moments, and I'm
Yeah.
sure. But I was honor student guy, so I was like 2 years ahead of everybody else in school.
Yeah.
Which means I really had no friends because I didn't have anybody in my peer group in my school, and I was the bullied kid.
Yeah.
Parents split. Nobody in my family knew what to do with a kid, and so that became a place to go. Like, and it didn't feel safe to be in Prattville Junior High School, but it certainly felt safe to be in Gotham City.
Yeah. Okay. Now I feel bad because I guess I didn't know you had a.
It wasn't. No,
Yeah.
it wasn't Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Okay.
It's not.
I
bad.
feel a little bit. Okay.
No.
Yeah. But they had, I mean, because I saw your name on the honor roll and I saw this whole culture.
Yeah.
And you think like somewhere in there, you're getting good grades,
Yeah.
but you're reading comics like
Yeah.
a madman. I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's always kind of, when people, people say it's always more than escape, like you said, that great line in your talk that DC loses ownership of Superman once he gets in your head.
Yeah.
And that's where, because then you can see like Superman kind of all in your life flow.
It wasn't just an escape. It was also a place of order.
Yes.
Continuity was very tight.
Yeah.
Around these characters, and their worlds were very predictable.
Yeah.
And they were very familiar.
Yeah.
And so moving from place to place, I went to something like 8 different schools in 10 years. So
Oh, wow.
moved around a lot. So that was my anchor.
Yeah.
Always, and those characters, those comics were always going to be there for me.
Wow. That's amazing. So that was my secret origin thing. Is that why you like continuity so much?
Yeah. That's why it means something to me. Because again, and when I was, when I was a teenager, it meant everything to me. I mean, like keeping track of all the minutia, all the facts, all the things about their powers, their worlds, whether it's Marvel or DC. I still have at home somewhere a giant metal box full of 3x5 cards with superheroes' names, their real names, their first appearances, and their origins, handwritten out by me. From all the characters, all the companies I could possibly find research on, and it just felt like that's a world that made sense to me.
Yeah.
And I could understand it better than I could a world that, outside of that was just chaotic to me.
Right. Where the adults have no idea what they're doing.
Where the adults have no idea what they're doing. These adults know what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is also why I think, I was a DC kid more than a Marvel kid for 2 reasons. One is that distribution in the South for Marvels was lousy. So it's very hard to find more than one issue in a row. But more than that, from my perspective at that age, the DC heroes were adults, like straight up adults, whereas the Marvel characters were grown-ups, but they were older. They also had their problems.
They had
and
problems, yeah.
Yeah, and this stuff. I didn't want to read about that when I was a kid. I didn't want to read about a character. I liked Daredevil most because Daredevil was the one guy who was like, I don't care, I'm swing around.
Yeah. You didn't want to see somebody like making wheat cakes.
Right, exactly. Like,
So every issue.
looking back, I get it, but just for me, it didn't do anything.
Yeah. Isn't that so weird? I mean, I'm sure you've all the same. If there's like a cosmic, it all depends what was on the spinner rack.
Yeah.
And it was like random.
Yeah.
What you were gonna, but what like started you off on comics too?
My dad saw Batman on the television. He saw Adam West, the Adam West show. Put me in front of that. Apparently, I responded really well. I was 3, but I was a fast learner, and I was an only kid at that time. So I had grandparents and parents that teaching me how to read.
Yeah.
So I was a reader by like 4 or 5. And so my dad started bringing me comics, and that was just it. That was Batman 180. He brings home Batman 180.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and which was not just my first comic, but it was millions of kids' first comic because that was the first issue of Batman that was published after the TV show premiere. And so suddenly circulation obviously skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So millions of kids had that same first comic.
I didn't know that.
That's why I'm here, Brad.
Well, yeah. So we'll leave Prattsville. And I'm not like making fun of Prattsville.
Feel free.
No, I mean we're in Cleveland. It's like no, yeah, we love Cleveland, but it gives us, what I'm saying. So you've had obviously many roles in comics. I think the most interesting is the writing, obviously, that's the most that gets to people. But I'm just like fascinated that you're the publishers, Humanoids. But we can talk about that later, man. I think that's amazing. But so on your website, you describe yourself as writer, editor, troubleshooter, troublemaker. I want to ask you about one of these. No. Troubleshooter.
Yes.
Why trouble? I mean, because I have a troublemaker. I think if you know Mark Waid and his career, there's some making of the trouble, and we're going to talk about some which you said you are totally fine talking about, and I'm like kind of shocked that he wants to talk about it. Right. So may have turned the camera on? No. That's
Troubleshooter on
troubleshooter.
First off, I'm a puzzle guy.
Yeah.
That is how I get through my day. That is what motivates me as a writer. Is the puzzles I have to solve and creating situations that I have to figure a way out of.
Okay.
But beyond that, lost my train of thought there for a sec. It's that I have been, as you say, in the industry for, since they were painting cave walls, and I have done every job in comics there is to do. I've been, penciler, an inker, a letterer, a colorist. I've been everything but the guy with staples in the comics, and so I like being able to use that knowledge as a consultant or as an editor or as a publisher, whatever, to help keep the train on the rails, or whatever, to help solve problems. I love solving problems, whether it's on a piece of paper and it's a crossword puzzle or real life.
So what puzzles do you do? Just like crosswords or?
Yeah, go get my whole regiment of like Wordle stuff.
Oh, you're that guy.
Yeah. All the,
nice.
Have you tried Redactyl?
No.
Redactyl's crazy. Redactyl is they give you a Wikipedia entry with a lot of the words redacted, and then you have to guess what the Wikipedia entry is word at a time. So that's the kind of stuff.
Wow. So I have a theory on the troubleshooting too.
Sure.
It's my Waid theory.
Okay.
So you have this, and this builds on, you have this massive knowledge of trivia.
Yeah.
And I don't like the word trivia because it's trivial.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing it the no cards, it's like everything.
Yeah, it's not trivia to me.
Exactly. Right.
It's knowledge to me.
Right. And at times it seems like, and I assume you still are, you're like the go-to guy at DC, like, people were calling you up, and at some point they were doing this for like everything from merchandise to, was there ever a point where you weren't like being compensated? I'm just curious, compensated for the,
Actually, a lot of times I'm not, but that's okay. A lot of times I like
when you're starting out, I mean.
when I'm starting out. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, there was very little compensation. It was more like,
Yeah.
I get to be part of the club.
Yeah.
I was first starting out in comics, and then being able to be that guy. But even still, like I was reviewing stuff from the collected books department the other day. We got a table of content. Does this make sense? Did we leave anything out?
Yeah.
I love doing that. So
Yeah.
again, I do that for free.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. So you have like this, 17th level intellect on
Comics.
Russia. Yeah.
Yeah. How many people were there last night? Okay. Yeah. Now ask me to name my senator.
I had a couple questions in there last night.
You did.
Oh, you heard that?
We didn't know who had which question.
Yeah.
Because if we had known which questions belonged to which people, which questioners, I would have known who to punch.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
And I don't remember what I asked, but they were pretty good. I think there was like something about the microverse.
Something.
Maybe. I don't know. Whatever.
Oh yeah. HMS Pinafore, whatever it was. Okay. Yeah.
Endeavor.
Yes.
So, what I've noticed about your work, and starting with The Flash, with your, come on, your amazing work with Ryan on that, yeah. The way you kind of expanded it, to me, was like the troubleshooting.
Yeah.
Like when you like comics, you everything about a character. But and this is continuity, right? If you have so much continuity, it just can't hold.
Right.
Some of it just isn't going to work, or some of it's just going to be dumb.
Right.
Right? Why is the Flash fast? Well, he runs really fast. No, but then somebody would get on you and say, well, how could a human being run that fast? And no, he runs really fast. Right? A lot of people just dig in.
Yeah.
Right? But I feel like you just tell me if I'm wrong or just what you do, you try to solve those problems that are just dumb problems.
Yes.
And hence the Speed Force.
Because they're not dumb problems.
Well, yeah, no, I don't mean dumb.
They're challenges to me. They're like,
yes.
I mean, I think my theory is all comics fans go through a cycle, which when we are very young, we take everything at face value.
Yeah.
When we get to be a teenager, young adult, suddenly we're really interested in, okay, how does Cyclops' magic beams work out of his eyes? How would that work? And then we all reach a point where we're like, magic beams, cool. Where you would say, we get that we come back around full circle. But I was clearly in my, I really need to know how this works. Also, I'm a science geek. I was always a science geek. I minored in physics when I was in college. I start most days as part of my screwing around in the morning like everybody does on the internet, looking at science sites to see what has been invented today that there's a story in there. So that was really just, Jake Garrick has an origin and he doesn't make up a lot of sense and he's the Elder Flash, and then Barry and Wally have the same exact origin, which is crazy. So how do you make all that stuff tie together? I like it. I love, as long as it doesn't become such a huge thing that it becomes impenetrable to readers. I like coming up with the streamlined theory.
Yeah, and it doesn't change the continuity of the character, really. I mean, but it makes it more
cohesive.
Yeah. Feasible, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, in Speed Force, but it makes it rewards readers.
Yeah.
To say, oh, everything I knew was right. Like now I've got this great.
Yeah.
I think other writers kind of stole that from me and do that as a, and it works.
If you say so.
Right. I think Jeff Johns does that constantly. But he did great with Green Lantern, the same thing. And I think the most recent version, I'm not going to spoil it. If you're not reading Last Days of Lex Luthor, which is on issue 12 now, which is tantalizingly but it's, you do something with one of the, for Superman fans, the question of, why doesn't Superman hang out in Kandor
Thank you.
more?
Right.
You solve it.
Yep.
Just a couple panels and it's done, and it's phenomenal.
Here's the secret.
Yeah.
You think about the characters.
Yes.
It
Yes.
sounds simple, but Brian Augustine used to call it wearing the suit. I mean, really getting in. Tom Pyre-Hauser writing about the superhuman condition.
Uh-huh.
I spend my time in the head of that character, and not just what they're thinking about when they're punching stuff, but what is their life like? What do their powers do to enhance their life? How do they live their lives through that lens?
Yeah.
And so the question then becomes, okay, why doesn't Superman hang out in the bottle city of Kandor? Remember what the bottle city of Kandor is? Okay, the lost Kryptonian city, captured by Brainiac, miniaturized, now it's in the Force of Solitude. You would think Superman would spend a lot more time there, and I dwell on this. So I have one or two choices. Either I just pay no attention to it and worry that people will ask that question. They didn't ask it in 1958 because we were all kids. Already sober now, they'll ask. Or I dig down deep, and so I thought about it at great length, and I thought, okay, here's an angle. It's that Superman is the one who saved them from Brainiac's spaceship and gave them a place where they could be safe and settled. They look at him like a god. They look at him like they just worship him. And he is incredibly uncomfortable in that situation. That is not Superman.
Yeah.
So it also plays into the alone thing I was talking about earlier, that you would think that would be a place he could go and feel more accepted and feel more part of something. And in fact, it's the opposite. He tries that, and he goes in, and it's just they won't stop bowing before him.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
And there's more stuff like that coming up. There's like in issue 2, there's a whole thing
I
about
want the issue 2. I'd like.
it's coming. It's coming. But issue 2,
So good.
We're in Atlantis anyway, do a lot of stuff with how Atlantis works in the Superman world, and why Superman,
No way.
how he interacts with the Atlanteans, the same with the Legion, the same with the Phantom Zone. I mean, the Lex Luthor story, the last stage of Lex Luthor is a 3-issue miniseries. This second issue, which will be out someday and all that kinds. And it's really just my excuse as a travelogue to go throughout the Superman universe and say, okay, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I've been thinking about why Superman doesn't kill for a really long time. Here's a place to do that story. I've been thinking about how Superman and the Phantom Zone work together, and what is something new to say about that nobody's ever said before. What can I say?
It reminds me, just the one issue, and hearing you say it, just a teeny bit of whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, which is kind of that tour.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Yeah. And I think Brian Augustine said too, that you write from the inside out.
Yep.
And that kind of makes me think of that too. I mean, who I assume, people go see a writer, it's because people are writers or they want to be a writer. What does that mean, right from the inside out?
It means, like I said, you just start from, okay, I want to write a Daredevil story. What is my life like from the moment I wake up in the morning? How do I perceive the world? What do my ears tell me? What do my senses tell me? How does radar sense really work? What would things look like to me? And you start from there, and then you sort of build out, okay, then what are the challenges that are unique to that specific set of abilities?
Okay.
And move forward. And how do those sets of abilities interact with someone else's sense of super abilities? And what do they have in common? What makes them different? Are they antagonists? Are they friends? And so that's where I start. The last place I start is, oh, look, an alien spaceship has shown up.
Yeah.
I don't care. When I get to the...
Oh, they showed up.
No, he's
They're going to get away.
I care as a plot function, but I say this about writing all the time. Nobody cares about plot.
Yeah.
Plot is not important. Plot is a place for a story to hang a structure on. But everybody in here has seen a James Bond movie, right? I defy you to tell me the plot of any James Bond movie. Well, that's because it's not because it's dumb. It's because that's not what you remember. You remember the chase scenes, and you remember the hot girls, and you remember the moments when your blood was up, right? That's what you remember. And so that's what I care about as a writer. And the alien spaceships and the supervillains who show up are just a way to get there.
Do you think that's part of your, and Mark has a terrific speech that he just gave at the Ringo Awards, that you can read and watch, named after your friend and collaborator. And it's about how to stay in comics.
Yes.
And it's so good because I think it applies to everything,
Thank you.
not just comics.
Yeah.
No matter what you do. So I'm not going to summarize it. You should just go see it. And this is like a week ago or a couple weeks.
A couple weeks ago, actually,
Yeah.
yeah. And the transcript is on markwaid.com.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Do you think that's part of your, I guess, longevity? Is writing from the inside? Because then it's not. And somebody asked me, so a couple of people gave me a question. This is from Dr. Andrew Fogel. Is Superman and Batman, are there and I think he said Batman seems to be more malleable, but I think I agree in terms of what you can do with the character as opposed to Superman. But it's also, and that makes me think, is writing from the inside out, is that kind of a loophole to escape if corporate says, well, he can't fight pink aliens or something, plot nonsense.
Luther's being used in 6 other comics this month, so you can't use him. That's part of it. But it's really just, that's what I care about. The sadly late Keith Giffen.
Which I was going to bring up.
Who passed away just the other day. And God, if I get half the tribute that he did when I die, I will be astounded because the whole comics world loved Keith. But I asked him once for a piece of advice. I said, because Keith had been in the industry even 10 years before I was, and he always had a gig. And I said to Keith, what is the secret to staying in comics and staying vital? And he says, find what you're best at and own that lane. Own that lane, and that way when they need that, they will have no choice but to come to me. And I feel like, I hope this doesn't sound arrogant, I feel like I own that lane of writing from the inside out and understanding these characters on a cellular level, knowing what their voices are, knowing how they react, knowing how they interact. It's just stuff I've been thinking about since I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
So.
And that was next on my list to offer our condolences for your friend. But the thing that struck me about that quote is, it says, you have a lane. His lane was 17.
He had a highway.
It was colossal.
He owned a highway.
So what would, I guess, I was just going to ask you to share a Keith Giffen story. I mean, I'm a 5 years later Legion guy. I mean, that to me is there's a reason you can buy it like this because it should be in a freaking museum. And you were the editor.
Yes, I was.
Which I didn't realize till years later I saw it and I was like, what? And that's the kind of, you had kind of a I don't want to keep saying corporate thing, but you couldn't use Supergirl.
Right.
But it didn't matter to me as a reader. I mean, do you want to talk about that experience, being his editor or that?
Being Keith's editor was like riding a bull at the rodeo. Can I make 8 seconds? I probably can. Give me maybe 6.
Wow.
Yeah, Keith, well, remember at that time, too, Keith was coming off of Justice League, which was by far in 86, 87, 88, the star jewel, the crown jewel of DC Comics, right? That was the book that everybody read, and it was incredibly well regarded, both internally and by the readers. So when Keith says, I want to do the Legion, you just stand back and let him do his thing. Because I felt as a 25-year-old editor, yes, technically my job is to, sort of keep the guardrails in place, but you're Keith, just do your thing. And he did. And so the one thing I was able to do is keep him from, he really wanted, when he killed Block in the second issue, That was a negotiation because what Keith really wanted to do, and I'm not kidding, is put every Legionnaires' name in a hat and just pull one out of random and kill them. So, and I saw potential problems there. So,
You're very wise beyond your years. Really? Out of a hat?
out of a hat. Keith was an agent of chaos.
I mean, it's a very chaotic story. It was so progressive for its time and even now. And it just, yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. But I've always wondered about that Supergirl, the whole troublemaker kind of thing, and people tell you, like with Superman, there are rules, you can't write him a certain way. But then, everyone was kind of upset that it wasn't Supergirl, but it didn't matter.
Didn't
like
matter.
I said.
Yeah.
And she was a terrific character.
Yeah.
And then, of course, yeah, but whatever. Yeah. So I would just read this. This will be the last part of writing from the inside, and then we'll talk about maybe legal stuff and get in trouble. How's that sound?
Sure.
So who's reading World's Finest? Well, we're supposed to applaud.
You're dead.
So this is, thank you for World. Everybody, right? Thank you for World. It's like we've been waiting forever, it seems.
I've been waiting all my life.
And good Lord, Dan Moore.
No, he's such a great artist. He's amazing.
Yeah, it's so good. But I want to read, I'd like to do a dramatic reading. So, no spoilers, so I don't fall off my Dick Cavett chair. Superman, and this, well, maybe I'll get that. There's, so Superman is angry. And I should have brought a slide of it. But Robin's talking to Batman, no spoilers, and Robin says, Superman's pissed. I've never seen that before. And Batman's like working. Helplessness is a lot for Clark to process. That's a terrible Batman voice. Losing people close to him, it's a particular trigger. Notice it. Grief he can handle. The anger he has a hard time managing. And the panel is the classic Superman angry, where it's just his eyes are wet. We see it like in lots of stuff. And Robin goes on, I guess there's not much he can do without it flattening a city, like you talked about. And Batman says, so he'll internalize it. Right now he's angry at the Joker, but he's even madder at himself for putting David in the crosshairs. That's what they're trying to say. And Robin says, how do you know? Batman says, because so am I. Found our clue. Yep. And in just those 3 panels, you get into like all this stuff about Superman. But you also like kind of retroactively explain all those times we see Superman with the red eye.
Yeah.
And you're like, is he going to go evil? Is he going to pry somebody? And he's not. But now you know what that is. I mean, so this is writing from the inside.
Yes.
Absolutely. But is this something you did like for this moment or for all those times, Superman, or just something like you said you've just been thinking a lot?
I've been thinking a lot about it all my life. Like, again, he must get angry.
Yeah.
But he cannot express his anger in any way that would be familiar to us, or else he would be flattening cities.
Yeah.
So what does he do with that anger? Well, what do we all do with anger that we can't express? We internalize it. And in his case specifically, the thing that makes him angriest is when he perceives himself failing.
Yeah.
That's the key to Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
The key to Kingdom Come is that he blames himself for everything that happened after he left. And the reason it never occurred to him in Kingdom Come that the world would turn upside down when he left is because he's Superman. And as Superman, he is humble, and it never occurs to him that the moment he says, I don't want to do this anymore, that's when Green Lantern and Flash and Robin all get up and like, why do I even get out of bed?
Yeah.
It would never even occur to him that happens.
Yeah. There's just so much in just those 3 panels. Like you said, helplessness, losing people close to him. That's his origin too, right? He couldn't save Krypton.
Right.
Grease he can handle. It's the anger.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course he would feel angry. It doesn't mean he acts on it. But so I really, and it's one of those things that if you explain this in like a prose novel, it would fall like completely flat. I think it's like just a cliche.
Yeah.
But it's because they're talking, and it's not Superman saying it too.
No.
This is right.
Right.
If he says it, it's worthless.
Yeah.
Right. You're like, oh, stop crying, Superman. But it's Batman saying, so it has all the weight. So it's just, I think this is just Omega level comic.
Thank you.
I think. I read this like 6 times.
Thank you.
So back to Kingdom Come. Have you heard of the Kingdom Come? I didn't even want to ask anything because I feel like everything has been asked
Pretty much.
about it, and I think you can go look it up. You can read it if you've never read it. I think it's one of the big ones. Obviously, I mean, like
You're very
thing
kind.
doesn't
Thank you.
matter, but mostly because it's so weird. But in a good way. It's like one of those superhero things where you're the observer.
Yeah.
And no, usually you're right there in the adventure. And here, I didn't know who. I knew who Green Lantern was, but I know who the Flash was.
Yeah.
And comics are supposed to tell me who they are, and that was great. But so I don't want to talk about too much about Kingdom Come. But there's one thing stuck with me. I read something by Alex Ross where he said. And I always think it's like hilarious that when you like cooked it up, he like didn't know like you're writing or anything. Like who is this guy? And he's clearly a comics guru. But he said he goes, "You were perfect because of no, what's the word I'm looking for? Your now I forgot the word. It's friend sympathy. You can help me out here. It wasn't empathy. He said, you have a...
Sure, the compliment you freeze up on. Great, okay.
Yeah. No, I wrote it down. You have a... It's not respect. Anybody know? Anyone like memorize an Alex Ross interview from 19...
I think what he's getting at.
Yeah, I mean,
is
we
that
know the... It'll come to me.
There's two forms of knowing these characters, right? There's the Poindexter way of, well, actually, I think I wouldn't do that because of this and this, and I know that, but that's not me. Like I'm willing to take a step back from that and go, all right, let's take a breath. We don't have to be beholden to every single panel of every single page. Let's get into what the character's all about. I'm more interested in what the character's about than I am in what he did in one comic in 1964, although I probably know what that comic is.
Yeah. It's more, it's like a respect, and I can't find the word. So I can't read my handwriting. It was a respect for, because like some of that book is a little silly almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, Cathedral.
Yeah.
Which is great. But there was like, and the word will hit me and you'll hear me scream it from the east side of Cleveland and be like, oh, you remembered it. It's like respect. It was just a respect for that there's going to be some stuff going down with these characters, but you were still, just like you said, appreciating that kernel of it. And that's another reason, no spoilers, why you should read this. And that's World's Finest. And that blew my mind.
There's 2 volumes out so far. There's two hardcovers. This is the second one. Although, feel free to read the first one too, if you wish. The art is amazing.
All right, so I think there's a couple Superman things we should talk about because it's a Superman thing. And then we're going to have a lightning round of questions. Then we'll open it up to the audience.
Okay.
If you dare.
They've already proven they have no questions.
maybe we'll have the audience pick the Superman topic. So we have two like kind of Superman topics I wanted to talk about. One is the K-Metal story, which our founders and pals, Jerry and Joe, created Superman. They would go to this very library, over that way up one floor, but still the same library, and, read stuff and work on stuff and get into trouble. So the K-Metal story is this like kind of apocryphal story that, Mark was like really right in the middle of. I think it's a great story, but I have like maybe a twist to ask him on it. So we could do that, or we could talk about Mark was also I think this would go under troubleshooter. Yeah.
Yeah.
With the kind of the last great lawsuit over the Superman that a lot of us know about, or if you don't, that the family tried one last attempt to get control over Superman. Right? Jerry Joe create Superman. They do it independently of anybody. First independent comic superhero, first superhero, and they sell it to DC for $130, and it's theirs. That's the abbreviated version. So which one do you want here, K-Metal or legal? What should we call that? We need a good title.
Legal.
Regional.
You can go online and type.
Yeah, K-Metal's out there.
Yeah, you can go type Mark Waid K-Metal into Google and you'll get the story. But the legal stuff, here's the thing. So, in the early 2000s, the Siegels and DC had reached an agreement. I personally believe, as a creator and as somebody who is not just a DC flat, as DC will be happy to tell you, I am not automatically a mouthpiece for DC. They're as angry with me as often as they are happy to have me. I felt it was a fair deal, and so did DC, and so did the people at DC who were really pulling for the Siegels. They're not Warner Brothers corporate overlords who are maximizing and squeezing every moment of profit. People working at DC Comics are fans. People in DC, Paul Levitz in particular, who was the publisher at that time, was incredibly progressive about making sure that creative people had piece of what they created and that they got their justice, or they got their due. So they had a deal in place. And then this lawyer, and when people say they hate lawyers, this is the guy they hate. There's a guy named Mark Toberoff who came along. Mark Toberoff made his bones in Hollywood by when the Wild Wild West movie came out with Will Smith, a real proudly. He went and found the guy who created Wild Wild West for TV and found out that guy didn't really have a piece of the pie. And so he fought to get that guy a piece of the pie. Awesome, great, good for you. And he succeeded. Awesome, good for you. But then he realized that's where the money is for him and that's where the opportunity is for him. So then he became that guy. He became the guy that you go to if you feel like you've gotten not a square deal on this or that. I don't know exactly how he hooked up with the Siegels. My suspicion is that he sought them out. But under the guise of, oh, I will help you. The Siegel, this is a terrible deal that DC's giving you. I will get you a better deal, which he did. I'll get a contingency, which at that point was 40%, which, by the way, is way off the charts for any consignment lawyer. You get 40% of their take, and also a big piece of the Shuster's estate as well. And in return, you get them a better deal. So he fought. And what was going on here? DC got a hold of me because I know so much about Superman. DC needed some expert witnesses on their side now for the lawsuit. I often hesitate to volunteer the fact that I was an expert witness for DC because that makes me sound like I was on the side of the Nazis. But in this specific case, it was exactly the opposite. In this exact case, it was no. This is all about saving the Siegels from Mark Toberoff, because Mark Toberoff's endgame, and this is the God's honest truth, is that when all was said and done, if he had managed to do his illegal maneuvers, Mark Toberoff would be the owner of Superman. he would have owned the majority stake in that character. Not the Singles, not the Schusters, not even the economics. He would have owned it. And if you've ever seen The Office, he's like an evil Toby. They come very low key, but boy, and again, I hesitate to slander a lawyer.
Yeah,
So let me just say that I believe him to be, in my experience, a ghoul.
wow.
But your mileage may vary. I'm sure he's kind to his dog. You know, I'm sure he has children he loves. People are complicated. But anyway, so all this to say, this is the bullet that was dodged. And this is why you can still read Superman comics. And this is why you can still see Superman movies. And this is why you can still see him on television. Because we fought against Todorov taking over the character, and then he would have owned it. So, long story short.
Yeah, and he's made one film, and it's something bikini sharks or something.
like that,
3D.
yeah.
It's a 3D.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah.
Cinema.
He's a visionary. The man's a visionary.
Yeah. It was, I think, it was closer than people, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
And by the way, the sad PS of this is that, yes, he did get them a better deal after Joanne passed away.
Right.
She wasn't alive to see the victory because of Mark Waid.
Right. And they're, and I'm not, I don't hesitate in saying it because I wrote this in my book, and talked to people who said that was on purpose.
Yeah.
And that to me, that also struck me as particularly ghoulish.
Yes.
To steal your word.
Yes.
Yeah. And you can go see Jerry's daughter, Laura, is going to be, it's on your program. Yeah. And she's an excellent speaker, and you can ask her and say, well, what's this about? You know, Waid and Ricca said that your lawyer was but yeah. It's October.
Yes.
Are you secretly a horror writer?
No, actually.
Really?
I don't really have it in me so much. I've done a little bit of horror,
Yeah.
but I like diving deep into the psyche that way. But it's not my lane. Why do you ask?
Tower of Babel.
Tower of
Babel.
Yeah.
Did I say Babel?
That's all right.
Yeah. I don't think I'll ever forgive you for that. But I think because I think that was the first time
Yeah.
anyone did that. And it happened a zillion times after. But that was the most terrible.
The opening.
Yeah. The coffin.
Yes.
The casket.
Thank you. Yes.
It's horrific.
This goes to the core of it. When I take over a character,
Yeah.
I take over a wolf like I did with Justice League.
Yeah.
The first,
From Morrison.
from Graham Morrison,
Yeah.
which is to, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't take up Grant. You can only look bad. But my go-to is always, what is the worst possible thing that can happen to this character
Yeah.
that we've never seen before? And with that, it was, what is the worst thing that can happen to Batman? It would be that he shows up at the graves of his parents and they have been emptied.
Yeah.
And the bodies are gone. And I had that idea for about a year before I took on Justice League, and I would pray every month that no one would get there before I did.
And you're not a horror writer. I mean, because you want to do this to the reader.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, you want to do it as a writer, but you really want to mess up the reader. And there's other parts, like there's a lot of death in a Mark Waid comic, like kind of like brutal. Like Luthor is kind of indiscriminate at Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
Vandal, I remember that Vandal Savage panel
Yep.
that just comes out of you turn the page and what I would say is that explains it, that you're trying to, what would be the worst thing to happen to the character. Why is that so important for a superhero?
Because you still need to be invested. You still need to be invested as a reader on an emotional level.
So does it have to be that much worse because it's a superhero?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
You have to turn the dial up to 12, yeah. Because the biggest rap I get on my stories, and I think it's true a lot of the times, is that a lot of them are very low stakes. Because it's more about the emotion and stuff. It's more about it's less about the end of every issue being the end of the cosmos unless we do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, I do like to throw, the high stakes in just to keep people on their toes.
Huh. Yeah, that looks truly terrible.
Everybody having a good time? You all right?
How do we, you want to go lightning round and questions from everybody? Are you ready for the lightning round?
I'm ready for the lightning round.
Favorite single issue?
Favorite single issue of Superman is Superman 148.
Favorite single issue comics?
Favorite single issue of any comic.
Yeah, I'm doing it fast to be careful.
Action Comics 500. Do you need can I give some context here? Or not?
Sure,
Lightning round,
it's
but
your
give
show.
context, but
Yeah, no, give me context.
Superman 148, my favorite Superman story. My favorite Superman comic book story. This is going to sound ridiculous to anyone who didn't read Superman when they were a child. But you have to remember, that especially in the 1960s, 1960s, it was a fairy tale for children, and that it unashamedly so. So what I'm going to tell you is going to sound like a sitcom plot, but in fact, as a 6-year-old, I took it grimly seriously. And the setup for the story, Superman owes $1 billion, is that a well-meaning IRS agent realizes that Superman has never paid taxes on anything. And while he doesn't have a traditional income, even still, he is generating income for charities. He's doing this, he is doing, and all of that stuff actually is taxable. So he runs the numbers and realizes Superman owes $1 billion. And because there is no law on some books somewhere that Superman will not obey, go figure, he takes this seriously, light of the government that he knows. And so he goes all around the world. He's trying to do this. And everything goes wrong for him. He tries to, take this ancient, he takes uranium. I can use the Metropolis Hospital and they'll sell it and so forth. I'm not doing it justice because they're all silly, but everything goes wrong. He's like, that is the sitcom plot part. Everything is blows up in space. So finally he goes to the IRS and he's like, you got me and I don't know what to do. And at that moment, the IRS agent boss bursts in and says, what are you doing? What are you doing? Here's the thing, he says. According to the American tax laws, and this was true in 1960, the number has changed, but at that time it was, you were allowed to deduct $600 for every dependent on your tax list. And the whole world depends on you. And it still chokes me up a little bit to say those words because that's so true of Superman in his world, that the whole world depends on him. That is what a gift for that character. But anyway, that's my favorite art. Action Comics 500, my favorite single comic book, period, is the life story of Superman, which was a really well done origin. You asked me about my favorite origin.
I found the word, it was sensitivity.
There you go.
So you have a sensitivity to the character. Yeah, and that doesn't that describe Mark as a comic story? I think that's a perfect word. And I found
I'm doing a terrible job of the lightning part of this, but go ahead.
No, that's my fault. Where and when do you write?
Oh God, writing is not typing. So writing is spending a lot of time staring into space. I do not have a regimen. I do not have a specific office hour thing because it feels like a job that way. I spend a lot of times on Sundays because that's the one day nobody's going to call me and nobody's going to email. But beyond that, it really is just catch can. And if you give me a deadline of a month from now, I will write that story 2 days before the deadline.
Okay.
I'm that guy.
Oh, okay.
Every day of my life. Every day of my life. You seen the movie Stand By Me?
Oh, yeah.
The scene where they're on the giant train bridge and they're right in the middle of it and they're walking and all of a sudden they hear the train at a distance and they have a whole ass to get to the end of it before they get script. That's every day of my life. So that's how I write.
Favorite non-comics book growing up?
Growing up, anything by Harlan Ellison. Anything by the writer Harlan Ellison. Job. Yeah.
You've said some amazing things about Superman.
How many people know of Harlan? Okay.
We're Clevelanders. Come on.
How many people discovered Harlan when you were a teenager. To me, I think that's when most people lock into him, because Harlan's real gift, beyond being a very great prose writer, is his essays and his ability to be a voice of anger for you as a teenager when you have frustration and anger about the world in you and you don't know what to do with it and you don't know how to express it. And Harlan expresses it beautifully. I think a lot of teenagers catch on to Harlan at that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And should.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love Harlan. Will floppy comic books exist in 5 years?
We've been saying for 40 years that the floppy comics going away. As long as they continue to be the feeder system to comic book stores,
Yeah.
then they'll always exist. The trick is, if you own a comic book store, which I have, is you know, as comic book guys, most of you already know this. I apologize, but I don't want to allow for people to doubt. If you own a comic book store, that means that you personally are buying all those comics from the distributor. You're not like a regular bookstore where you get to take them and then send back the ones that are unsold. Oh, no. You own them. So you are stuck with anything you don't sell. Now, I can afford to take that gamble on $5 comic. Mm-hmm. It is much harder for me as a store owner to take that same gamble on a $30 graphic novel. And so the idea that we are going to move all the way over to trades and hardcovers, comic book stores are not really built for that economy. Mm-hmm. And yet without the weekly income of the floppy comics, the whole system completely disintegrates, because that is guaranteed income that comes into the companies every week. They can count on that, as opposed to graphic novels where you'll start one and it'll come out a year from now.
Yeah. So support your
Support your
local stuff. Carol Jot. Would your memoir teach all or tell all?
I want to tell everything. You know what? I think that it would be both. I think I would teach all by using tell all as an example.
Oh, that's
There
a
you
good answer.
Thank you.
You're doing I saw you're doing like classes.
Yeah.
With
Howard Chaykin.
Howard Chaykin. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah, we're gonna say hopefully we'll take it on the road. But Howard Chaykin, writer artist, of all the years that I am, very talented man. He and I have put together for UCLA in November. We're gonna take a whole Saturday, the whole day start to finish, and do like a boot camp basic. Here's how to create comics.
Wow.
I'll talk to you about how to write them. Howard will talk to you about the art and the storytelling. We'll go back and forth, and then at the end of that, hopefully you will have some knowledge and some direction to go if you want to create your own comics. So we're going to do it there, and we've got another couple of conventions that we can do it. Say the conventions that start on like a Friday on a 5 or whatever,
Yeah.
Friday, then we can do it during the day before.
Oh, during the,
And then so we're going to try it and see how it goes. And if it goes well, we're going to take it on the road.
that's really cool.
I've also written a book called How to Create Comics the Marvel Way,
Yeah.
which I wrote 5 years ago,
Yeah.
pandemic, and which is still going to see print someday. But it's everything. It is how to write, how to draw, how to ink, how to color, how to letter, like everything.
Oh, I didn't know it was everything.
Yeah, it's the
Wow.
whole. I wanted to give you the whole discipline, which meant I had to go back and relearn a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Because, especially with lettering and coloring, the technical end of that accelerates quickly.
Yeah.
So and so does art now that we've gotten to. When I started the book, we were talking about Photoshop. Now we're not talking about Photoshop anymore. We're talking about Clip Studio and apps for your iPad and for your tablet. So anyway, that hopefully sometime in 2024.
Oh, really? Oh, that's good news.
I'm doing a terrible job of the lightning part. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, you think I'm doing it better? What was the most amazing comic or graphic novel you read during the lockdown?
During the lockdown, I read a book called Louisa Now and Then, or Then and Now, but I think it's Louisa.
Yeah, yeah.
It is written by Mariko Tamaki.
Yeah.
It is drawn by a woman, Carol, whose name escapes me, and I apologize for intuiting her. It is a beautiful story about a woman in her 30s who is going through a thing, and there's a knock at the door one day, and there is her 17-year-old self standing there trying to figure out why she's there too. And it is not a science fiction time travel back to the future thing as much as it is a character study and a beautiful story, doing things in comics that you can only do in comics, using the form in certain ways where you can't do that in movies, you can't do that in prose, you can't do that on TV. Movies are that now. Hands down, like my favorite thing I've read in years. I told you about this last night.
Yeah. That's Humanoids, right?
It was Humanoids. It was before I started being published.
Before you start, yeah.
And then I left the publishing gig a couple of years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
Under great. I mean,
Yeah.
under all good circumstances, I'm still doing stuff with them. But
Yeah.
But that was before I started.
Yeah. Comic you take the most flack for liking?
Man, seriously, Superman 148.
Any more recent?
I don't think so. I think there's
Okay.
the good news is I think the audience is broad enough at this point where
Yeah.
there's not any universally wild comic out there.
Really? I get a lot of flack for liking Doomsday Clock.
I get that. Yeah, I didn't get a lot of
Good stuff about Superman.
I did get a lot of flack for liking Batman Odyssey, which was Neil Adams writing
Yes.
and drawing.
Yes.
Which was amazing. It was my favorite comic every month because it made absolute
Yeah. Big dinosaurs. Yeah.
unfathomable this book. So,
Best Legion chairperson.
Cosmic what?
Comic writer you think is most consistently good?
Grant Van Morrison.
Okay.
Also my favorite. I mean, I am the Salieri to Grant's Mozart. And
Oh, I would. What's his favorite thing besides Superman?
what's his favorite thing?
No, that you like of his.
That I like of his,
Yeah,
besides
sorry.
also Superman?
Yeah.
His Justice League run was great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. I walked
His
right
X-Men,
into
I think
that.
his X-Men run was great.
Oh, amazing. It's no Invisibles. but
Something
it's
like that.
okay. I'm a big Invisibles fan. Favorite this is a dumb question. Who has the best rogues gallery?
If you're talking low stakes, it's The Flash. But if you're talking high stakes, it's Batman. He's got the greatest. Look, Spider-Man has a great rogues
Yeah.
gallery. I get it. How many animals can you make supervillains out of?
It's good.
But it's not as deep a bench as Spider-Man's. But
Yeah.
it's you get all those characters are a lot more complex than the Vulture, for instance.
Inside Out. Who has the worst rogues gallery?
That's Superman.
Yeah, see?
I know.
Yeah, you said it. Wow.
I was talking to a film writer the other day about Superman. Like, he didn't know Superman that well. He knows Superman about as well as your dad knows Superman.
Yeah.
And they're like, who did you find? I said, well, you got Luther Brainiac, Metallo, and then you sort of hit the skids. I think there's mileage in all of them, but even I don't know what you would do with Toyman and Prankster.
Yeah. Oh,
It is a very small
yeah. Don't even.
bench.
But I liked what you did with Parasite in Kingdom Come.
Thank you.
Where he's just like, enough already.
Exactly, yeah.
You know? Because that would seem like Parasite, just leave me alone.
Well, the problem with Parasite 2 is he's the epitome of my least favorite villain trope, which is villain defeats self.
Yes.
Every Parasite story ends exactly the same.
Yeah.
Let's overload him and he'll explode.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's terrible.
And he always shows up like super early in somebody's run.
Yeah.
Like they have to do the Parasite. Like,
Yeah.
no, we don't.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
We get it. Thank you, Mark Waid, for this. So thank you for this and everything we, read along the way.
And my pleasure. I do it for these people and I do it for you guys. And thank you so much for coming out.